Afternoon there, people of the internet. How you guys doing today? I'm doing just fine, thanks for asking. Kevin says hello, guys. I'm out here on my gun range, got me a nice, warm, crisp cup of Folgers coffee. Nice, strong coffee. Excellent, excellent flavor. I love Folgers. I certainly do. I got a quick question for you guys. What is the most iconic American-made firearm in the history of our country? Oh, okay, besides the AR-15. Alright, well, if we're gonna... Besides the M1 Garand, alright? Alright, you got me, 1911. I guess. Springfield is just a low blow. Yeah, then I guess there's the model of 1917 Enfield. All sorts of American weapons, I suppose. Does the M60 really count as an iconic American weapon? Alright, there's a lot of iconic American firearms out there. Well, I've got one today, and it is a cold, crisp day out here in Florida. Temperature is definitely dropping. We're out here in the evening, got a nice frosty breeze coming through, and this hot coffee is just freaking magical. Alright guys, I've only got 20 rounds of ammunition, so I'm only going to be loading 10 round mags. However, take a look at what I got. This is something that I've wanted for a long time. Made by Volunteer Enterprises. These guys were around in the late 60s, early 70s, and they made these firearms. They are no longer in business. But I was down at my local gun store, saw this on the wall. I was like, you know what? Why the hell not? I've been wanting a Thompson Reproduction for a long time. This is chambered in 45 ACP, and it takes grease gun magazines. So these right here are available to get. It's not like I'm gonna have trouble finding more mags for these things. This right here I believe holds 30 rounds, but since I only have 20 rounds available, I'm going to be loading 10 round mags for our shooting demonstration. This gun is a lot quieter than I was expecting. A lot quieter than I was expecting. Typically your pistol cartridge carbines are a lot quieter than actually firing from the pistol itself. So, that being said, I got 10 rounds here. Slides right in. Seems to function just like a straight blowback Tommy gun. Let's launch some lead. Looks like we have one malfunction, failure to extract. This firearm does not lock open on an empty mag like the original Thompsons did. Like I said, this right here is just kind of a reproduction. It almost looks like it has the top receiver of a Thompson, and then somebody just kind of fabricated their own receiver and spray painted it. I know that was done by Enterprises, or Volunteer Enterprises, but it kind of looks like a home project, in my opinion. Looks like somebody got a Thompson parts kit and fabricated a lower receiver themselves. So, I don't know, that's just cool. Let me load up some more ammo. This being a grease gun magazine, I do not have the tool required to actually load this thing. I'm kind of doing it by hand, and anyone who's ever loaded a grease gun mag by hand knows it can be a little challenging. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it is a little annoying. Okay, so, like I said, this does not lock open on an empty mag. You can, however, manually lock it open. Kind of a stupid setup they have to manually lock it open, but you can manually lock it open. So I got my last 10 rounds here. I do wish that I had more ammo for this thing, but I just don't. So last 10 rounds, and then we'll go ahead, walk inside, take a good close look at this Reproduction. Damn, that was fun. That was a really good time. I love this thing. This thing is neat. I'm getting more ammo for it. What an insanely iconic American weapon. This is a piece of history right here, guys. This is something that I've wanted for a very, very long time. This and an M1 Garand, which I will get one day. Alright, ladies and gentlemen. So what we have right here is a Volunteer Enterprise Commando Mk3 chambered in 45 ACP. Now, before we dive too deep, I want to let you guys know that I've been awake for about 36 hours now. I am extremely worn out. I'm very, very tired, but I got to continue to grind and make those videos if I want to achieve my goals. So I'm going to continue to grind and make these videos. I got 4 videos to make tonight. I'll be uploading them at different times naturally, but I got 4 videos to make tonight, and this right here is going to be the first one. Okay, so alright, Volunteer Enterprises, they come out of Knoxville, and they were around during the mid-1960s to the mid-1970s, about that time era. They obviously are no longer around nowadays. What we have right here is one of their Thompson lookalikes. Now, there are going to be 2 types of people who take acknowledgement to a gun like this. There will be the type of person who sees this sort of reproduction and basically hates it with every fiber of their being because it's not exactly precise. It's not an exact reproduction of the original gun that they were trying to replicate. There's going to be the people who see this Thompson lookalike and know everything that is wrong with it, and they're just going to hate it right off the bat. And then there's going to be people like me who recognize that this right here is just Enterprise or Volunteer Enterprises trying to make a Thompson lookalike, and they included a lot of their own unique features while still making it look like a Thompson. Now, I'm pretty sure with this specific one right here, they're trying to replicate the Thompson M1 series. However, there's quite a few very, very distinct differences between this and the M1 series. This right here is not an exact representation. This right here is just a lookalike. And by my judgment, I would say this right here is closest to the M1 series. Alright, there's a couple of things that really, really put this apart from the M1 series. The rear sights are obviously not the same. These right here are just sheet metal pressed sights that were stuck on the back of the gun to make it look like a Thompson rifle or Thompson carbine. The biggest, there's 3. I'm just kind of counting them up over here. There's 3 extremely big differences between this model right here and the Thompson M1 series. First one I'm going to address is the charging handle. The charging handle on the M1 series would have originally been on this side of the gun. Well, on this rifle here, it is on what would be considered the left side of the gun. That doesn't really hinder much of anything. In fact, it makes shooting easier for right-handed gun wielders because you don't have to... It's just more ergonomic to have the charging handle on the left versus on the right, which is what the M1 series originally had. Another really big difference between the M1 series and this Commando Mk3 is the heat rail up here on the barrel. The M1 series did not have this. The M1 series was a very hard attempt to simplify these guns as much as they possibly could. The simplification process that came with the M1 series turned the Thompson from a blish lock system into a straight blowback system. And that's the same exact system that this one right here is running. In fact, the fact that this is just a blowback carbine is why I decided to bring up that they were trying to, or that this right here is closest replicating the M1 series with a lot of really major differences. But this heat rail up here does not exist on the M1 series. The barrel is also quite a bit shorter. Probably the biggest indication that this right here is not a true Thompson. Anyone who has any inkling of knowledge about what a Thompson should actually look like would know that the lower receiver is not supposed to look like this. The upper receiver, other than the sight, barrel, but that's not really part of the receiver, and the location of the charging handle, it looks pretty good. I won't lie. I like the blued finish on it, but this lower receiver right here and the pistol grip on it, it's just one solid piece. It almost looks like the cast metal that high points are made out of. It might actually be the same exact thing. But the Commando Mk3 was rigged to operate with M3 grease gun magazines. They chose to use these magazines versus the actual Thompson magazines because the grease gun magazines are far simpler than the Thompson's ribbed magazine. Standard capacity for a grease gun magazine is 30 rounds. However, I have seen in a couple of instances 20 round mags, but I believe those are Vietnam era magazines or Korean War era magazines. I tried finding drum magazines for the grease gun and those don't seem to exist, so I'm going to say that those were no longer in existence. On the original Thompsons, this large magazine well right here would not be there. It would pretty much just round out right about here where the upper receiver is, and that right there would be where you load in your stick magazine. The M1 series did not accept drum magazines as well. The United States government decided to get rid of that, and for very clear reasons, this right here will also not accept a Thompson drum magazine. The upper receiver on this thing does look pretty good, but the lower receiver is sketchy at, best. The trigger on it, the trigger is atrocious. The trigger has an 8-pound trigger pull. It's not bad if you're shooting at the range, but don't try taking this competition shooting because it won't go well. There's so many, very poor rivets and pins in this receiver. I'll bring you guys back here in a second to take a look at that. But the entire lower end of the receiver is just cast metal. The magazine well, the trigger guard, the handle, it's all just one solid piece. And as a result of all that being just one hunk of cast metal, this is a very heavy gun. It comes in at about 10 pounds, including the fully loaded magazine. Alright, this right here is basically a straight blowback, closed bolts, carbine chambered in 45 ACP, and it's made to look similar to the Thompson submachine gun. That is very clear. There's a lot of real distinct differences, but it clearly is designed to look like a Thompson. So, first thing we're going to look at is the controls on this thing. Very different from the Thompson M1 series. That button right there is our safety. Yeah, click that to the other end. You got safe and fire. This right here is semi-automatic only rifle. Obviously, this is a civilian gun. Right there is one end of our mag release. I'll flip around the rifle and we'll go ahead and check out the other end of the mag release. The bluing on the receiver, like I said, is actually pretty immaculate. I wish that the lower receiver looked a little bit better, but I'm not complaining. I'm really not. Alright, now that we have this wannabe Thompson flipped over, we can actually get into the nitty-gritty and the really cool stuff about this rifle. Right here on the lower end of the receiver, we have a very large patent pending indentation. Obviously, this right here has a patent that is pending, or it did whenever Volunteer Enterprises was a thing. Patent number right there at the top, I'm not going to read that out, but 45 cal semi-auto Volunteer Enterprises Inc., Knoxville, Tennessee. These guys right here were around for a little while making these things, but not for too terribly long. But for the price that you'll pick one of these up at, which is just a Thompson lookalike, it's not an actual Tommy gun, just a lookalike version now. But it's a good little range rifle for the price that you would pay for one of these versus an actual Thompson. Right here on the back, we got Commando Mk3 along with a serial number. This right here is 24,025. The stock on this thing does have a supporting rivet right there on the very front of the actual buttstock. These were not included in the M1 series. However, just like the M1 series, the stock is just kind of screwed on from the bottom. This right here is just a supporting rivet added by Volunteer Enterprises. This particular rifle does not have a front sight. Well, this particular carbine does not have a front sight. And the rear sight is just slightly different than what we would find on the M1 series of Thompsons. There's no top notch, it's just a rear aperture sight. Seeing as there's no disassembly button on the back of this thing, I'd say the disassembly process of this is probably significantly different than an M1 Thompson, but I'm still yet to figure that out. Alright, so these things are a lot harder to find than a modern production Thompson. However, they are far cheaper than a modern production Thompson. So, pros and cons, there's a lot of very, very distinct differences between this and the M1 series, which this is very clearly trying to replicate. But if you're going for authenticity, this right here is not the direction that you want to go in. However, if you were like me and you were looking for a Thompson for the range that you didn't really care about taking out on a wet, rainy day to lob some ammo downrange, you wouldn't exactly want to take your brand new production Thompson, 1927 model platinum plated out to play in the mud and rain. This right here is a good little trade-off. You get a Thompson look-alike and you get to have this gun that you wouldn't really feel all that bad about getting wet or rusty or abusing it a little bit more. Sticking 1,000 rounds through this thing and the wear and tear that comes with something like that is a lot easier on the mind than sticking 1,000 rounds through a collectible modern production Thompson, actual Thompson, especially seeing as this right here is probably about 1/5 of the cost of a good quality Thompson. So, is something like this for everybody? No. I mean, there isn't really anything out there that is for everybody. There's people out there that will love the fact that this right here is a Thompson look-alike. It's close enough. It's pretty cheap and it's fun to shoot. This thing's nice and quiet. Its heavy weight means that there's very low recoil. 45 ACP is an extremely common cartridge, easy to find. I can drive down to Walmart and pick up a box of 50 for $15. Not hard to shoot this thing. But if you're going for historical accuracy, then no, this right here is not the route that you would want to take. So it all depends on what it is that you're actually looking for. You can have yourself a historically accurate Thompson, and you could have yourself this carbine range gun for tearing up. It's entirely your choice, entirely your preference. We all have our perspectives and points of view on what it is that we like and do not like. Well, that being said, I still have a couple of videos to make tonight, so I'd like to thank you guys for watching. If you like this kind of stuff, go ahead and subscribe, because I do this kind of stuff all the time. Personally, my opinion, I like this gun. I think I'm going to have a lot of fun with this gun. It is a little more awkward to handle than an actual Thompson. The fact that it doesn't have a front sight is kind of annoying. I'm sure that I can just fabricate a front sight and, you know, just TIG weld it on there. I'll be fine. I'll see what I can do about a front sight for this thing. And this right here should make a pretty fun little range gun. Anyway, if you want to see me shoot this thing some more, I'm more than certain I'm going to really blast some ammo through this. So mash that subscribe button so you're not out of that loop. If you want to consider supporting me, go ahead and check out my Patreon page. I got some cool stuff going on there, including, well, it's mostly just outtakes, behind the scenes, a couple of tidbits of information from my mental support pages, but so far all of my guns and ammunition have been bought out of my own pocket, because this is what I like, this is what I enjoy. However, I'm not quite able to make the type of content, the value of content, the absolute surplus of content that I would like to make. So that is why I would like to start getting support and seeing this channel grow. So if you can't help out financially, that's just fine. I completely understand. You know, trust me. I get it. No worries. Mash that subscribe button and you will absolutely help out just enough to make me the happiest man in the world. Alright. You guys have a nice day. I'm going to go grab the next gun for the next video.